Hey, business building warrior. I've got a guest on the show today that I think you're really going to enjoy. He has built a business that sells, most recent full month was $140,000 at about 12 to 13%. Let me check my notes. Net margin, 12 to 15% net margin typically. Not a bad gig. And he hasn't been doing it all that long either. He's, of course, using the Amazon REPLENS system that you hear us talk about so much on this podcast. If you listen to a couple hundred episodes of this show, all the testimonial episodes, the most recent ones, are people talking about, 99% of them are talking about the Amazon REPLENS system that we've got, I believe, as dialed in as it can be as a system to take you from knowing nothing up to having an awesome business. And today's guest is just another example of that. He's a dad with 3 young kids. His wife runs her own business, keeps a busy schedule, but he's able to be home and help with the house duties and squeeze this business into the cracks. He works about 20, sometimes as much as 30 hours a week, but he's in the process of even turning over those responsibilities to someone else. He's got a virtual assistant that helps him find profitable products. He's using a prep center that you've heard us talk about many times on this show, which is just someone that receives your inventory for you. Let's say you shop online and buy something. Well, instead of shipping it to your own house, you ship it to a prep center. They take it out of the box, inspect it, make sure it is what you ordered, put a sticker on it, send it into Amazon for you. That's what a prep center does. He talks a little bit about that today. And he's built an incredible business just looking for great replens online using creative strategies that he shares with us. And it's coming close to being a fully automated business. He didn't start until about 18 months ago. It never sold online. That's when he got started. And like I said, he's ramped up very quickly. And he's doing a really good job of it. Looking over my notes here, one of the things he pointed out was that he had about 4 months where he was in kind of desperation mode right around the COVID because he thought maybe he was going to be losing his job and he really needed to make something happen quickly. So with about $10,000 of startup money, which is what he had, he dove into Amazon REPLENS and he's built the business that he describes today, which again, 18 months later, put $140,000 in sales at 12 to 15% net margin. That's before he pays himself, of course, into the bank, which is a beautiful business model. I think you'd agree. So if you want to hear yet another great story of a student using the Amazon REPLENS system to build a beautiful business model, you're going to hear it today. I really like how he enjoys or how he describes the enjoyment that he gets. It's going to stand out to you as well from just being the dad that he really wanted to be, home with his kids, flexible. They can go where they need to go when they want to go. His kids are younger, 5 and under, 3 kids, and they're just enjoying this season of life thanks to the business that he's built. So I'd love to introduce you to our guest today. His name is Grant Douglas, and you're going to learn a lot from the way he runs his business. Let's jump into the interview. So Grant, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. I know a bit of it, but let's dive in, man.
Yeah, so I started Amazon e-commerce in January 2021. I had a few coworkers that have done it a little bit, but had never really thought it would be me that would take the dive in to that. But it was around that time that I thought that I might have to find another source of employment. My income had always been the entire family income, so it was, hey, what are some things that I can do to be at home with my kids, to keep working from home? I've been working from home with COVID, and that's when I started seeing how it seemed like that Amazon could be that for me. So it started then. It's only been a year and a half, but I got lucky. I feel like that I had my employers allow me to give a 5-month notice. So I knew I had 5 months of income from my previous job, was able to use that money to continually reinvest. And by, about September, it was September of 2021, I was able to go full-time Amazon, was making doing about 50,000 a month in sales then. And since then, I've doubled and almost tripled that to where I am now.
That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about some of those early lessons and early decisions that you made. What inventory were you selling? How were you finding it? What model were you following?
So the replens model is without a doubt the way that just the foundation, how it was like explained for me. And full disclosure, I didn't take the a course from you all in the beginning. I found the community later on as I was looking to connect with other people and find other things. It was the podcast as I was searching for podcasts because my wife is a flower farmer and I'm lots of times outside helping her harvest some things. And I'm always want to be listening to something for that. So I found your community later on, but the way that the replens model was explained to me is the same way that I've heard it explained many times. But the way that I look at it is, someone told me like, hey, what is your quit number? Like, what is the number that you need to make at Amazon in order to quit your job? Or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just like, what's the number that you would like this to be as a side gig, right? You start off with that number. So for me, I knew to support my family, I had to make at least somewhere around like $50,000. So you start off with that. Then like, all right, divide it by 12. That's how much you need to make per month. Like, okay, 4,000, 4,100. All right. And then after that, they said, divide it by 3. So let's just say on average, like it's a very, very broad brushstroke, but on average, you sell a product for about $3 profit. Some are $1 profit, some are $20 profit, but on average, let's say it's $3 profit. So divide that 4,000 a month by 3, we're at like 1,400. And they said divide that number by 10. Let's assume that every single ASIN you have, every single listing you have, sells about 10 times per month, right?
Yeah.
So I was left down with the number 140.
So how many products you needed?
Yeah. So that's how many. If I have 140 items on my replens spreadsheet, then in this theoretical number of everything added together, I would be able to make 50,000 a year.
Net profit.
And
yeah.
In profit. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I like starting with that end goal in mind and breaking it down. I think sometimes we just plow forward hoping for the biggest result we can get versus what is it I'm really shooting for here? Let's break it into, let's eat the elephant one bite at a time. I like that exercise. That was cool. And you could use any variation of that, but that's a neat illustration of how you can kind of go from the big number I need down to how many actual products do I need to sell.
Yeah, I think it does make it so more attainable because if you think about it that way, like if you're just finding 2 products a day, then you can get your replens number to that amount in 3 months, assuming that you can, assuming you can buy it. Like, I mean, it's a whole different ballgame of, making sure you have the money for it and how are you going to move it? Is it going to be able to move fast enough and things like that? But it was literally me probably every couple of days going to my spreadsheet counting. All right, what am I at? What am I at? I'm at 100. Okay, I'm almost there. What am I at? And then by the time I had to leave my job in August, I was over 150. And so I was like, okay, theoretically, I think I can support myself. I think I'm okay. And since then, it's grown more. But I looked back a couple months ago and I'm selling about at $3 to $4 profit if you average per ASIN that I sell. So that theoretical spreadsheet of averages still holds true for me today, and is and it still works for me.
That's a cool illustration, Grant. How many ASINs do you have now?
I have 500 ones that I'm actively looking at. A few ones that I have on a sheet that I hold on to, refer back to, or previously sold. But yeah, about 500 right now.
Very good. That's awesome. So what strategies do you use to find these replens? Or early on, what strategy did you use and what are you using now? What do you like now?
So early in line, I learned tactical arbitrage. I do not use that at all now. That was just a good starter for me. The first time I ever went to the store, I went to Walmart. I was told like Walmart clearance is a good place to start. I also like scanned some books, scanned some toys, even though I didn't realize I couldn't sell any toys at the time. And I walked out of there with 3 items after 2 hours. And I went back, I looked at my Keep It chart, and I actually didn't think any of them were any good. I returned them all. I mean, those 2 hours were filled with so much anxiety. My first time at the store, I got approached by a Walmart employee that was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And like, they didn't care after I told them, but I was like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do this."
It makes you
And
nervous. Yeah.
yeah, like, of course, the whole time I'm thinking no one better see me, no one better talk to me. And then
Oh,
someone walks up there. But
right.
and I know that happens. It's really not a big deal. But for me, that was also the last time I scanned in store, and so I started doing online arbitrage after that. And
Oh, you gave up on it entirely.
oh yeah, I was done.
One time, really? Oh,
So I've gone
it's kind
back.
of sad. I mean,
I've gone back 2 more times to like just kind of see if I could, and like I didn't like it.
it's not, yeah, sure. It's not you, it's not your personality. And just to be clear for the listeners, we don't encourage people to stay in the Easter egg hunt mode, is what I've come to call it last year or so, where it's kind of like the yard sale mode. It's like, I'm going to go out on an adventure today and see if I can find some profitable stuff laying around, whether it be a yard sale or a Goodwill or a clearance aisle at Walmart, or just scanning barcodes looking for stuff that's selling for less on the shelf than it is on Amazon. That's not the replens model. That's an Easter egg hunt. And it's fun for some people. Some people, it's like they can't imagine a worse way to spend a day. It's not necessary for the replens model. Replens isn't scanning barcodes, as you well know, but this is me just kind of keeping the listener up to speed. The replens is a completely different animal. But we do encourage a lot of people to start off, just get used to the process, sell something. It could be some books or something you have around the house or the clearance aisle at Walmart. But I love your story of, just a random innocent Walmart employee comes up to you and you're done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out.
And I mean, there's pros and cons to doing things in store. There's a lot of in-store deals I don't get because I don't do it and I don't have any shoppers doing it for me.
Sure.
But just the comfort level of me I was just, we don't have an office. So I was just sitting in my bed, nice, comfortable with some pillows.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to learn how to source online, first tactical arbitrage, but sometimes manual sourcing, just going to stores, sometimes storefront stocking, looking at other people's listings, and just several different ways. And I got to a point where I did hire a virtual assistant in June 2021. So even while I was still part-time Amazon, between my other job, I just didn't have any hours left. And she told me that she doesn't like tactical arbitrage. And I was like, well, that's fine. I don't like it's okay. And so I gave her all the knowledge I know about how to source, and she used her previous knowledge. And I don't know completely how she sources today, but I know she still finds products. And yeah, but we don't use tactical arbitrage because she doesn't like it, and we don't do RA because I don't like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're mentioning TA. We started doing some training just recently on that. We've been doing replens training in this community for coming up on, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. And just started using TA in the past couple of months around here, some of us, so yeah. It's certainly not a necessity. Absolutely has its uses. I'm much more of when it comes to replens, I'm much more of an and guy versus an or. Do I use this or do I use that? Or.
Right.
No, you use it all. You do it all. Yes, you get a virtual assistant. Yes, you use tactical arbitrage. Yes, you do retail arbitrage. Yes, you do all of it. If it's making you money, you do it. But people definitely have their preferences and their specialties, and they get really good in their niche area. So I certainly can appreciate that. But let's talk through your virtual assistant for a moment. What are you paying this VA? What's the arrangement there? How many replens are they finding? Is it a Filipino by any chance?
Yeah. Yes, I didn't hire him through you all, but yes, she is a Filipino.
Beautiful. Yeah, it sounds like when you got your virtual assistant, you trained them yourself. And we, of course, you allude to the service. We have Proven Replens VA. Just take a link in the show notes where we can train them for you. But you absolutely always have the option of taking the content and courses or whatever it is however you've learned replens and hire someone in the Philippines for, what do you pay your VA? 4 an hour approximately, I'm guessing?
Yeah, so she started off, I don't know what it was per hour, probably around four. She started off $500 a month, and working 40 hours a week. So it's probably right
Wow.
in there.
Mhm.
But with her, she's gotten a $50 raise every 3 months. And so, I mean, my big thing is I just want her to stay. And because, I mean, they make that money back, times five, times 10, depending on the week. And so I'm not concerned if I have to keep paying her more, because I don't want her to leave. I don't want to have to retrain somebody. I don't want to then have a virtual assistant that maybe doesn't know how to source nearly as well as she does. And I
That's
mean,
phenomenal.
yeah. So why not? And I mean, even at the rate that I pay her now, I mean, I think it's probably between $5 and $6 an hour. I mean, we're still less than minimum wage in the United States, but she, in particular, she supports both her, and her mom, and her
Beautiful.
siblings. So, and
Yeah.
that's how it is for a lot of these, virtual assistants. Is they're supporting a lot of people, and so I don't
Yeah.
mind paying them more. And we have a good relationship, and I trust her. I think when I hired her, that was one of the big reasons I hired her, was like, hey, I trust you.
Yeah.
And definitely took some extra training. Anytime a virtual assistant says they've taken some class or some course, like, there were still a lot of gaps that I had to fill
Of
in,
course.
that she didn't know, and I don't want to go through that process again. So that's worked for me to keep her around, is just keep giving her raises, keep making sure she's hitting, the numbers, and we're both happy about it.
Yeah, that it sounds like a fantastic arrangement. And for listeners who are new to this subject, maybe you're a little confused. You've got someone contributing to your business for $5 or $6 an hour. What? Well, in the Philippines, $1 per hour is the average worker that most people earn. So you start talking about paying 5 times the average hourly earner, and that's a pretty good opportunity. And they're going to take that
Yeah.
job very seriously, and they can do some special things with that money. That's what makes that relationship between those of us who have US dollars and Filipino workers so special. And they speak English well, they're technically savvy. They're on the
Mhm.
island where every little storm that blows through takes out their internet for 2 or 3 days. But if you can live with that challenge, it's just a phenomenal arrangement that many people in our community are taking advantage of. And again, at provenreplensva.com, you can get one of our trained VAs, or look at any of the numerous virtual assistant training or hosting pages and find someone and train them yourself. But you will run into some potential challenges going that route. But again, it's just a matter of preference. But it sounds like you did a great job, Grant, training yours and build a great relationship. How many replens per week or per month? How do you kind of break it down? There, you're paying them monthly. I want to say, is it female? Most of them are.
She is.
Yeah.
It's evolved over time. I mean, she used to do everything for me. There's some data entry she has to do for when I send stuff to a prep center,
Sure.
and some other just those small tasks. But I mean, the my goals for them to find, and the dollar amount that I like them to find, is probably a lot lower than other people. But we have two spreadsheets. One is $4 or more, and I mean, we've talked about ROI, but if you find me one that's $4 or more, I
Net
at least want
profit.
to see it. Yeah, net profit on that. So I mean, but that doesn't mean that she's finding me $100 item that only makes me $4 profit.
Sure.
That's not what it is. But we have a spreadsheet that's just $4 or more, and then we also have a spreadsheet that's $0 to $3, and so she's all like, in a week she's found altogether as many as 200. In some weeks finds altogether just 50 to 100. But I like to see anything, because there's sometimes that, there's a, like, the way I look at it is that I think that if she sends me a lead one time, she's probably never going to send me it again, because she's going to see it again and realize, oh, I already sent that to him. Well, if that one time she sees a lead, it's maybe at just $1 profit. Well, maybe the price just tanked. Maybe it's actually a really, really good replen that has been selling for a year, great, nonstop. And she just happened to look at it right as it got on a leads list, and 60 people went on the listing. And so So there's a lot of, so on that spreadsheet, she knows that like, hey, if there's an item that looks like a great item in every single way, except for like profit the past month, she throws that on there too. And so I get to see a lot
Keep
of
an eye on it and revisit that list, right? Wait for those to make a comeback, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. So lots of times I don't look at that list for another month or two, or if life just happens and I'm really busy, that spreadsheet gets untouched by me for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then when I get caught up, or when I'm looking for some more ASINs, I'll pull out that spreadsheet and I buy from it quite a bit, and so that works for her. I think it makes her feel better when maybe she can't find any of those $5 profit ones, but she found me 100 on this other spreadsheet. Then we're both happy.
Yeah. So she's actually, getting some work done, putting some numbers on paper, feeling like she's contributing, even though those are ASINs that you're just kind of in your back pocket, keeping an eye on. So you actually go through and filter through and make the final buying decisions then.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really big on limiting your time as much as you can, doing things as fast as you can. If you can save 5 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever. So, really, I've handed off basically every role except for purchasing now. All I do is I have the store link on my spreadsheet, and I'm just clicking and buying. And so yeah, so that means I am doing the final say of sourcing, I guess, on top of that, of making sure it's profitable, but it's convenient for me on a spreadsheet exactly how my other spreadsheets are, and it doesn't take me too long to figure out if it is going to be something I want to test out. I still just test out 5, regardless of how beautiful it looks, or regardless of how much profit there is. And I honestly, I make a lot of mistakes on my test buys too. I don't know what it is about that, of me being an ounce or two off sometimes, and or maybe it's the wrong color. But I still make mistakes probably 1 out of every 10 or 20 times on something I send in, and so I don't want to buy a bunch right away anyway.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It's interesting to me that's the piece that you've identified as the one piece that you feel like you're better off keeping yourself. So how many hours a week are you putting in on that, would you say, on the business overall?
Yeah, I shoot to just do 20. I make sure it never goes over 30. I'm really big on being with my kids and being with my family more. My wife was amazing for 5 years. She didn't work. She just focused on our kids. And when we went through COVID, and I was home and everything, we both got stir crazy, but it was very clear for her. She's like, I need to start working again. And so I was happy with that, because I wanted to continue to stay home with my kids more, which is why, the model of, well, we haven't talked about Prep Center yet, but the model of me ordering from home online before the kids wake up and after they go to bed, and me sending it to a prep center for them to prep it for me, and me having flexible hours of when it's summertime. She's a farmer florist, so she's very busy right now. And so if it's a week that I can't get in a ton of buys, it's okay. Everything is sent to Amazon. I don't merchant fulfill anything. So I can, in peak times, if I need to work 30 hours for a certain week, maybe she has nothing going on, then I can. But if it's this week she has a farmer's market Wednesday, a farmer's market Saturday, has to drive to a couple stores too, plus harvest everything and plant some new seeds. So this week I won't work 30 hours. I'll work somewhere between 10 to 20. And that variability and that flexibility is just so great for me, not just as not having to get burnt out, but also just getting to hang out with my kids a whole lot.
Yeah, well done, Dad. Good job, man. And I started being able to do exactly what you're doing when my kids were about the age of your kids. We haven't shared with the listener yet, but you and I spoke, and you've got some younger kids. Your oldest, you said, was 5 or 6, your oldest?
5, yeah, 5, 3, and 1.
Yeah. So I remember I was here for that phase and had that same flexible, like, hey, yeah, I'm here. I can, suddenly the weather's good today. Plans change. Awesome. Suddenly you need a couple days to go do what it is you want to do. My wife, Andrea, yeah, go do it. just being able to do life together that way with that flexibility, and your kids are going to benefit. I'm sure you're seeing some of the benefits already, but now, my oldest,
100%. Yeah. Dad's
yeah.
being home.
Oh, it's incredible.
I mean, it's so good for their development. It's so good for mom too. I mean, there's been weeks that, I mean, it's been basically me watching them by myself for those times. If it's peak harvest time, like this past Friday, Saturday, she was harvesting on Friday, had her market all day Saturday, and had something else going on. So they were with me the whole time, and it made me grow such an appreciation for her, for, like,
Right.
when I got to leave home and go and work a 50-hour office job, realizing that, oh my goodness, you did that 5 days a week
The
for 9
reality of
hours a day. Oh my
right.
goodness, what in
You
the
know what it did
world?
to me is I have this admiration. I call them superhumans, the
Mhm.
single moms that do
Yeah.
that and run an Amazon business successfully. I'm like, they are heroes. We got a good number of them in our community. Like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Because the two parent thing is ideal, obviously, because for the reasons you're describing and many more. It's I don't know how and we've got a handful of single dads too. There's several more single moms than dads, but it just amazes me how a single parent could pull that off. Okay, so you're describing it beautifully, and I always like to say, especially Grant, when I'm kind of just basking in the liberty of the flexibility that we have, that I say to the other parents out there who don't have it yet, well done. I mean, you're doing what it takes to provide for your family. Maybe you do have to drive 3 hours to a job you hate and you barely see your family, but that's the season you're in. Hey, keep up the great work. We support you. We're encouraging you that if life affords you the opportunity, we've got some things you could start to slip into the cracks of your life and possibly start to drift towards what Grant and I enjoy, which is this flexible e-commerce lifestyle. But not everyone's there yet. But you're doing a great job. Keep on plowing ahead. Being a parent is no joke. Even if you've got a flexible, Grant and I both could share stories, I'm sure, of like the days everything just goes wrong. Man, it happens to all parents,
Right.
right? We're not living in a dream world over here. But man, that flexibility sure does make a lot of the little things that come along a lot easier. Those little surprises, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was I think my concern of having something like Amazon, because I was in ministry for 5 years, and before that I even had a lot of really cool jobs. I went overseas and I helped open up a couple restaurants overseas, and I worked with refugees and immigrants. But I originally from Louisville, and there's a huge international population there, and I mean, I had some really really good jobs, and I was really concerned, like, like am I going to be okay sitting behind my computer for this many hours a week, and not seeing as many faces and that. But even with having those really good jobs and jobs that I enjoyed, for me personally, it pales in comparison to being at home and having that flexibility. And when my kids want to go somewhere, go to an amusement park, and if we want to go to Disney World, that it's like, my wife and I both are self-employed, and so we can structure our life exactly how we want and do the things that we want. And the just that ability there, that it's helped me change my perspective of, you don't necessarily have to get your meaning and your fulfillment out of work. I don't think work is necessarily meant for that. Even the people playing basketball for a living, making millions of dollars, I bet they'll tell you that basketball feels like work, and it's not fun and games time. And so Amazon's the same way. Like, sometimes it's not fun, sometimes sometimes I go into my office for 30 minutes, I walk out and I tell my wife, like, I'm just not feeling it today. Like, I'll come back and I'll order some more tomorrow. But what we get out of that, being able to live our life a different way, as a result of the flexibility of Amazon and what FBA and prep centers can do. I mean, that makes it worth it.
Hey, quick interruption. We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but I want to make sure you know about the Proven Conference coming up August 12th through 14th, 2022 in Louisville, Kentucky. Join hundreds of your fellow business building warriors, the same people who listen to this podcast, the successful students you've heard interviewed, the coaches on our team. There's over 60 of them. We're all going to go, hundreds of us, to Louisville, Kentucky, August 12th through 14th. We want you there. Come hang out. be a part of this incredible community. We've done this several times in the past. It gets better every single time. It's unlike any other conference you've ever been to because the stage and all the breakout sessions are comprised of the great leaders and students from our own community. We don't bring in outside experts that you could go watch on YouTube anytime you want. No, we are putting on stage the people that you'd love to meet face to face. It's an event unlike any you've ever attended. It will change your life. August 12th through 14th, 2022 in Louisville, Kentucky. See theprovenconference.com for details. Theprovenconference.com. There's a link in the show notes as well. Okay, let's get back to the program.
Out of that, being able to live our life a different way as a result of the flexibility of Amazon and what FBA and prep centers can do. That makes it worth it.
Yes. So it so much does. It kind of reminds me of the advice I heard one time for some reason as I was hearing you describe it, that it's not always life's not always a bowl of cherries. Even if you've got this beautiful, flexible Amazon business, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of inconvenience. But I remember someone saying, if you've got a successful business and you see your kids getting to the age where they're maybe going to step into that business, you're very smart to make them go work for someone else first. Make them go get an appreciation for how the real world works. I did fast food for several years. I was raised on a farm. I worked a good handful. I won't go with the list of there's this dirty, nasty here in Indiana. I think the worst job I ever had was detasseling corn, which if you don't know what that is, Google it. But that's brutal, just brutal. And so now I have it very much an appreciation. But that's one of the greatest gifts you can give your kids is to have an appreciation for how hard most people work to get a few dollars. So then you have this opportunity like we have, and you can really appreciate the flexibility. So until you've had a few jobs that you just kind of had to plow through, it's hard to really appreciate that flexibility that this lifestyle affords, and the Amazon opportunity, specifically the REPLENS opportunity. What a blessing it is. I'm just for my own curiosity, what type of ministry did you do? You mentioned it. I was raised in a pastor's home, and I consider my job a ministry now. I mention it all the time on this podcast. I mean, this is kingdom work from my vantage point. Whether people receive it that way or not, it's up to them. But that's how I view it. But tell me about the ministry work you did.
Yeah, I was a children's pastor, and so when we moved to Southwest Louisville to work with the refugees and immigrants, we changed churches we were going to, and I started just serving at that church. And eventually, they asked me if I wanted to. Hey, we got a job opening. You want to do that? And I was like, maybe, I guess so. And so I did. I did that all together for 5 years, and we moved here to Cincinnati 3 years ago now. So I worked at a smaller church there, and yeah. So I, on that, tugging on my strings while I was working with, children for 50 hours a week, or at least like writing curriculum and seeing them on Sunday and pouring into all these kids. It made me, when I got towards the end of it and we started talking about maybe there's another step for us after this, and maybe it is Amazon, one thing we kept talking about was, maybe it's time to pour my own kids a little bit extra now and have those hours to do that. And so it was those were great jobs while I had them. I enjoyed ministry. It was great work. But yeah, it's a different group of kids that I'm loving on. More with my hours now.
Life has its seasons. My wife Andrea and I say all the time that our mission field is our own home, our kids. Right, that's our first responsibility.
Right,
and then after that, the ripple effects go out. We're doing the important things first around here. So that's great. I love the story, digging a little behind the scenes with the guests like this. So we've talked about your business. Let's get a little bit more specific on the numbers. I'd like to hear how things are going these days. Like, what's your goal for 2022? We're about halfway through, but give us some specific numbers, your net profits, net profit margin, that sort of thing. How's it looking?
I did 140,000 in June of 2022 last month, and net profit is still between 12 to 15%. It all depends on how people calculate that. That's pre-taxes. That's pre my cash back that I get from rewards, things like that. But normally it falls kind of within that.
Is that pre-paying yourself too, I'd assume?
Yeah, that's pre-paying myself also.
Right. But still, that's not bad, man. That's not a bad gig.
Yeah, I mean, and being in ministry, I mean, we never made any money and had the potential to put. I mean, we never put money into retirement. Maybe we could have, but honestly, but we just couldn't. We couldn't afford it. And so yeah, I'm happy with what I have now. I've honestly I tried to like level out once I hit 100,000, because we just said, hey, I need to work more hours. Like this is good, but when the business is set up in a way to grow because I have someone that's finding leads for me. I'm not finding leads myself, and those ASINs that I tested out 5 times. Well, Amazon tells me they might sell 100 times, so I'm going to go ahead and just send them in more. And so it's just naturally over time, even though we lose an ASIN or two every now and then. But the business is growing without me even trying for it to grow. I just have to spend a little bit more. It takes a little bit more time to buy some things, but yeah.
Have you heard the biblical Hebrew concept of trying to hold your business at a steady state? Have you ever heard me talk about that before?
I might be familiar with it, meaning that if you hold it steady, it's going to shrink.
Yeah. You're basically you've made the decision to kill it eventually if you decide you're going to try to hold it steady. You have to be in growth mode, in other words. So yeah, you want to be in constant growth mode. Not necessarily that you're the one that's constantly having to do more work, but that just forces you to think, okay, who else could be doing what I'm doing right now? Could I train someone to take over this responsibility? Could I begin to see this as an asset that is, self-propagating and growing on its own while I do other things? But you still want it to be growing, because if it's not growing, it's dying. There's no such thing as steady state. Health, relationships, business, there's no such thing. So
Right.
It's my chance to hop on my soapbox for a minute there and just encourage you. Yeah, growth is the right path. 100%.
No, I think it was from you that made me realize that, and I could see that, because if I say I'm not going to find any more products, like, I mean, I lose products, not even just by prices tanking, but Amazon sometimes tell me you can't sell that anymore, and then so eventually it would go down, and
if you're trying to do just enough to keep your nose above water and keep that same level of 100,000 sales a month, if you're trying to do that, though, that's equivalent of giving into the whole steady state argument. You don't want to do that. You want to be saying, okay, next quarter, how can we be bigger? How can we improve? Serve more people, right? Through what we do. That's the path you have to always be on. So that's what stewardship is, right? I won't hop on that soapbox, but awesome, man. Those are beautiful numbers. So is it just you're a one-man show with you? Let's break your model down a little bit. You've got a virtual assistant finding you up to 100 plus ASINs a month. You're buying the stuff. It's going to a prep center, we mentioned, and that's all the moving pieces. Are there any other people involved here? Any neighbors or friends, or is that it?
I mean, that's it. I do have another VA that just does 10 hours a week. So she took over any data entry kind of stuff that I have, so that my other VA could, at one point I was having her do 10 different tasks, and she was starting to, like, I could tell it was like, do this on this day, this on this day, do this on these days. And I was like, you know what, let me just give you only sourcing. And so she works 40 hours a week. My other VA works 10 hours a week. And then it's just me. My wife is busy doing her flower stuff. I've offered, like, hey, if you ever want to something, you can. She's like, no, I'm good. I like what I do outside. And so, that's what's so great about the online arbitrage to prep center model is, I mean, it works the same way with RA. You could pay shoppers and pay preppers and similarly have it scalable, but there's even less pieces where it's just me buying, it's just my prep center prepping, and it's just my virtual assistants doing those other tasks, so I can have more time to buy more.
Yeah. Beautiful. And you actually just illustrated another great principle of specialization, which is another Hebrew biblical principle. You're better off, given the option between having one super competent person who's really good at, say, 5 things and really good at them, doing all 5. You're better off having 5 people who are a little less talented, specializing in those 5 areas, because they will very quickly surpass the multi-talented guy. You're better to be really good at one thing, especially when you're growing a business. Break it out. And the other thing that protects you from is someone gets sick, they're out, they're gone, they quit. They're not taking 18 different tasks with them. They're taking
Yeah.
one thing that has to be replaced. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
well done.
that's honestly why I hired my other virtual assistant is if something happens, if either of my VA quits, then it's not me that just on a dime I have to start taking over their hours. My other VA that's been great with data entry for 6 months now, maybe I'll just train her on replens after that. And if my data entry person quits, well, my other VA does know how to do those exact same tasks. And so I don't, it doesn't take away from my business, and it gives me a little cushion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. You've got a beautiful model here. Well, one thing I think I'm trying to listen to this episode from the ears of a listening guest right now who might be saying, okay, good for you. You're finding a bunch of stuff. I need to find a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm your friend from high school and I just bought you lunch and you're going to tell me in 2 minutes, give me a shove in the right direction. I don't want your list of ASINs. Obviously, no one wants to just, like, hey, go to this store and buy this item. Like that doesn't do anybody any good. But in general, how are you finding what categories you in? Give me a shove in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, and let me first also say, with doing the numbers that I am now, I did scale fast. And so just being careful to compare without all things equal. One of the reasons that I scaled fast was one, because I had to, because I had a 4-month notice and I had to dive in and do that. Someone that's doing this part-time on the side, testing out, it's not going to be the same. And also I think it's worth saying that early on, I started in 2021, right when they were giving COVID relief funds. And so I used that for my initial investments. I think the first go around was about $4,000 we got from COVID relief. And the next one was 6,000 that we got. And so those first 6 months, I was able to invest 10,000 because I was handed the money and this was working well. And it was like, well, what better way to use this than to hopefully, double that or and continue to reinvest. So first, I think it's important. If you are picking this up with no extra money in the bank, it would be very hard to scale that fast.
Yes.
So with that being said, apart from that, all I've used is 0% interest credit cards. I pay them off every single month. And there's for those cards, there's many that you can get that it's 0% interest for 12 months. So even if I think there was 1 month I couldn't pay it off by the due date, but I had 6 more months to pay it off if I needed to. And so that's before even talking about buying or how to buy, just make sure that, there are some differences with that and funds people have available, but there's ways to get around that too. But I think that if you want to do it the hard way, then you can watch YouTube videos for 100,000 hours and you'll probably get a good competency level. For me, I tried that. I tried the free YouTube videos. I tried the free podcasts. Some stuff still didn't line up for me until I took a class. And so whether that be the proven $40 a month, $30 a month, whatever it is now class.
Proven Amazon course. Yeah, we're at 30 right now. That's due to go up maybe by the time this episode comes out, but it's right around in the ballpark.
Yeah. Or whether that's the OA simplified class, because that's essentially what my business model is with that. It's also not too much more than that. That's how you streamline it. And so I can't speak for someone that never took any classes and only took YouTube, because I tried that. And honestly, I was confused. It wasn't until someone broke it down for me that I understood. And then I realized, hey, there is a way to go on Amazon and you can just search things that are replenishable things that you replenish around the house, like Kleenexes, like toilet paper, or like this food that I buy every single week, this canned good, though you can manually do things like that. And sometimes they do that. There's ways that you can go and you can search for people's storefronts and you can see what else other people are selling. You can go and Keepa has a ton of advanced tools that there was a time that I did use a lot on that. But really, even with that, like it sounds really easy, but until you know exactly what you're looking for, until you know how exactly to look at Keepa, now I can look at a Keepa chart in 2 seconds and I can know whether this is something that I want to buy or this is something I want to save for later.
Right.
I would say early on, because there's so many moving parts to Keepa and there's so many things to look at of sales rank and price and competitors and reviews and that I just simply was very overwhelmed. And so for a class that's just $30 or whatever it ends up being, that helped me. And honestly, my time is money. And I just talked about how many hours. I mean, it wasn't 100,000 hours on YouTube, but I guarantee I listened to 10 hours worth of content and still didn't fully understand it from the free content that was out there. And so it's a good start. It's in the free content like this podcast I've listened to be able to source better. How I do my PPC, my pay per click, is based off of this podcast. I've never heard it, the advice that I've gotten here. And it's great and it supplements a lot of my knowledge and my gaining. But if I'm being honest, I had to get direction, and it really helped simplify things for me.
Yeah, and just as a general rule, you're so much better off in life to find somebody who really knows what they're doing and get their advice versus figuring it out on your own because you're determined not to spend any money to learn a new thing. It's the equivalent of the person who will drive 3 hours to save 20 cents a gallon on filling up their gas tank. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You haven't done the math on how valuable your time is. And on top of that, how valuable the relationships are working with somebody who's knowledgeable and ahead of you in life in many other areas. Like one of the most valuable things you can do in any business, you're crazy not to, is to establish a good relationship with someone who's been doing accounting for small businesses for, say, 25 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what kind of small businesses they've been working. It doesn't have to be e-commerce businesses even. But the instincts and knowledge that person is going to have on what works and what doesn't, their ability to take all the emotion out of your numbers and say, hey, you're crazy. Why are you doing this? Right? Mm-hmm. That's invaluable. But some people insist on doing their own taxes. No, I don't need to pay an accountant. It's just, you're missing out. So that's the same argument you're making here of, yeah, you can go to YouTube and drift around and get this 80% accurate information that's tainted with 20% outdated / dangerous advice. Or you can just go to a group that's producing consistent results and pay a few dollars to work with someone who knows what they're doing. And it's a tremendous investment. And I would put our community out there for the consideration of the listeners as one.
Right, yeah.
It's the only podcast I'm seeing that's getting 2 or 3 incredible success testimonial podcasts every single week from students following the course we teach. So I'm proud of it. But we're not the only ones teaching this stuff. But hook up with somebody who's producing results for their students. You will not regret it. So I deeply value and appreciate that advice.
I would say that having that Facebook community and being able to ask any question, whatever it may be, and typically somebody is going to answer. And it's those things that if you're on your own, you're watching an hour YouTube video to answer your question that maybe didn't even answer your question, as opposed to just posting and someone answers it right after that. So even that alone, maybe you're like, I'm not about to pay for a course. Well, how about to freely ask questions on a forum from people that know how to sell?
We're by the time this episode releases, I imagine we'll be over the 70,000 member mark in our free Facebook group. There's a link at silentgym.com. That's what Grant's talking about. And yeah, a lot of really smart people helping each other out all day, every day in there. And that's just one of the benefits. I'm very proud of. I think we've got about 1,400 tagged success posts. That's probably how I came across inviting you, or someone did, to this podcast. Was you probably posted something that was encouraging, and that's typically how we reach out and say, hey, that's a great post, thanks. And we start a conversation about bringing on a podcast guest. But is that what happened with you? Just help me remember.
We messaged on Facebook a little bit. I had a question about kind of something else and getting involved, and we messaged back and forth. But.
Okay. I apologize because I'm doing I do several episodes a week. So sometimes those conversations run together. and I'm not sure where it was I initially met someone. But I've really enjoyed your story, Grant. You've shared a lot of very valuable tips and information and strategies, and I think one of the things that a listener hopefully takes away from this is there's not one right way to do this business.
Right.
Pretty much any way you've ever heard us talk about replens could be a potentially right way to do the business. But it beautifully fits into the cracks of the life for just about anybody. And you're just more evidence of that. And you've built an incredibly robust business. You just had a most recent month, 140,000 at 12 to 15% net. That's beautiful, man. Not many people get to talk about a business like that they're doing with complete flexibility and, about as minimal stress as you can imagine running a business. So well done. Is there anything else on your mind? Anything else you want to talk about? We flew through your story today, and I think we hit a lot of good points. But I don't know if you had a list of anything else you wanted to share. If not, it's been a great episode.
No, I think that's about it. I mean, dads, if you're out there, if you're working a lot, that's awesome. If you're working a lot and if you don't have to, you can hang with your kids a little bit more. I love that something with Amazon, if that's what you're doing, that you can, even the way to grow it faster and better is to hand off more things, specializing like you talked about, having someone else that is finding products for you. My plan is to hire my sister on in the next couple of months to help me with buying, because it finally has reached a threshold of some weeks I have to spend more hours than I want to. And so then I'm handing off things for her. I'm still, and it frees me up for more time to do other things. I've thought about dipping into wholesale. I haven't touched that yet, but I reached out to King Dang, who was on one of your podcasts, and he's been encouraging, and so I might do that. Well, I don't have time to do that unless I hand this other thing off. But I do know that the amazing thing is that as I've scaled and as I've grown, I'm actually working less hours than I was in the beginning. Early on, when I was prepping everything myself and sending it in, I mean, I had a 10-hour prep day of shipments on my kitchen table. I mean, it was not fun. But if you can scale things back and work less, you actually will be able to grow your business more, and you'll be able to be with your kids and your family more. So if you're working hard because you have to, because you're putting food on the table and your family needs every ounce of money you're working, that's great. But if you can,
God bless you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If you can scale that back and you can spend some more time with your family, I mean, it's so rewarding and it's worth it.
I think it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy, that I appreciate a lot of his content. And I think it was him that I heard talking about escaping the rat race. That's his concept of, kind of getting out of the trading dollars for hours into that different fresh air arena of, growing assets and accumulating wealth. And one of the things he says about that, once you've escaped the rat race, is the less you work, the more money you make. Because again, like you just said, you're putting other people in charge of these processes. And the way I think about this is I'm constantly asking myself, am I the only person that could be doing what I'm doing right now? Assuming I've built a profitable process, I begin asking myself that question: who else could be doing what I'm doing right now? If you bring them in,
say that without a doubt.
Here's my theory: 3 months within putting your sister in charge, she'll be better at this than you ever were, because that's all she does.
So I think that's going to happen, because I can say without a doubt, my VA source is better than me. Mm-hmm. My prep center preps better than me. I know that because they catch my mistakes all the time.
Yeah, law of specialization.
Yeah, and so I have no doubt that my sister is going to be able to buy better than me, or buy faster than me, or whatever it may be.
Here's a question. See if I can stump the guest. So Grant, and this is me brainstorming. I can't say I know exactly the right answer to this question. I'm curious how you'll answer it though. At the point that you've handed it off to your sister, what is your role? She's doing the buying, and he's basically taken over all the aspects that you were in charge of before. What are the roles that you now have in your business that you perceive that right now, if you brainstorm forward a little bit?
Yeah, I think that it would be wholesale, and hopefully having the time. I mean, I don't have time to search for suppliers and to open up accounts right now. I would probably have a virtual assistant do that part of it as well. But it does get to a certain point of, I do still like to look at the new products before you send anything in. She'd be the one buying them, but I would still look at those. And there's actually, it does get to a certain point too, where like I do have someone that manages my IP complaints too. But then there's other small little things like those pricing errors that happen that you have to manually fix. I have to enter my maxes and mins. Like there's a whole bunch of little tiny things that add up to more hours than you think. And yeah, and so it would be probably that plus a little wholesale.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know right now. I don't think it would be 30 hours, but the good thing is I don't want it to be. If it becomes 15 hours after I hire somebody else and my business is growing more and my business is making more money, then like that's a great problem to have. I'll probably, honestly, to really answer your question, I will probably be out in the garden more helping my wife. That would be my honest answer.
The benefits of how you spend the free time, we can have fun brainstorming. It's kind of like that. Okay, so $1 million drops in your lap. What do you do with your free time now? And like, I'm not so much talking about that as like, what's your business responsibility, right? And so everything you just listed, I would challenge, could eventually be passed off to someone else as well, right? So I think this is just having watched a lot of guys go through this, ladies too. When I say guys, I'm talking generically, of course, but you get to the point where your business is kind of hitting its goals. It's kind of running on its own. You brought good people in. There's always going to be people challenges to solve. Someone gets sick, someone quits, whatever. So, now you got, do you put in a manager? Do you continue to manage it yourself? Probably manage it yourself at this level. So the people challenges, but the trajectory, the direction of your business, the big decisions, we're going to stop focusing on this. We're going to start focusing on that based on numbers decision. You'd probably be involved in that. And the other piece is the relational pursuits. And again, this is Hebrew biblical knowledge, but you'll always be seeking out new partnerships and relationships with people like you mentioned Kang a little earlier, and some of the other people in our community. Maybe you form a mastermind. Maybe you become a coach, or you begin creating content or doing classes. You begin using your mouth more to lead, build relationships, and lead. That's always the next level for your business, relationships and lead. And it fits very beautifully when you think about it into, our culture has this concept of retirement, which we reject. I think is pretty easy concept to reject. Not that we do physical work until we drop dead someday, but we're always figuring out ways to serve others. We begin using our mind more than our muscles as we age. So as you start to transition into that, mentoring, teaching, consulting, helping others achieve what you've achieved, those kind of things. And those are all very relational pursuits, right? So just to drop some of those thoughts randomly on you, man, I think that's where you'll probably end up heading. As you also, of course, enjoy the flexibility and freedom of, having those beautiful kids and spending time with your wife. But well done, man. You've built something truly special. And I think this is going to encourage a lot of folks, and hopefully my added on thoughts, enhance, not detract from just the beauty of your story. So I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you today, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me just share.
Of course. It was my pleasure. I learned and was challenged by you, and I'm sure the listeners were as well. So I'm going to talk to the listeners for a second. Thanks for joining us today. You gave Grant and I, my new friend Grant, some of your most valuable asset, your time. And for that, we are very appreciative. Even if you're watching this interview recorded years after the fact, there are some good golden nuggets in here today. I hope you feel challenged by them and inspired. And I know it's Grant's heart, and it certainly is mine and the team as well around here that puts these podcast episodes together, that we want you to be blessed. We want you to be in the center of what God has for you. We want you to be prospering, expanding, growing, being encouraged by what we bring to you. So that's our prayer for you today. So God bless you, business building warrior. Thanks for hanging out with my buddy Grant and I today. Again, Grant, you did an awesome job, my friend.
Thanks.
You're welcome, buddy. I appreciate you. And for the listeners, we'll have another great episode again for you very soon. We'll talk to you then. Hey, thanks for listening today. One last thing before we wrap up, a quick reminder. Now that this episode is over, get over to theprovenconference.com and get your tickets for the event coming up August 12th through 14th, 2022. Your fellow listeners to this show are going to be there. Successful students that you've heard interviewed, on this podcast. They're going to be there. Over 60 coaches from our team, they're going to be there. This is an incredible event. You cannot afford to miss it. It's an incredible investment in the future success of not just your business, but those vital relationships that you need. We talk about all the time. This will propel your life and your business forward. You're going to benefit tremendously from this. Do not miss this opportunity. We've done it multiple times in the past. Over 98% of all attendees say, yes, I'm coming back. The event gets bigger and better every single time. theprovenconference.com. There's a link in the show notes. We want you to be there. Do not miss this. We'll see you there. Talk to you next time.